Introducing the perfect and pluperfect, the last two Greek tenses, and not ones you're going to use a huge amount, so not a huge burden. Consider the following sentences. I broke the window, I have broken the window, I had broken the window. Is the window broken? I broke the window. It's a bit generic. We don't really know. It could be. I'm really sorry, I broke the window today, yesterday. I broke the window yesterday, but someone's fixed it. Any of those kind of ways of filling it out will be possible. We don't know if the window is broken. I've broken the window. That's an admission. The window is now broken. So yes, the window is now broken. I had broken the window. Well, probably not. Still broken, because it implies that it's a state in the past. And that state doesn't have to remain the same now. So we've got three ways of talking about the past. One where its impact on the present is unknown. One where it does have an impact on the present. And one where the impact is felt in the past, but that probably may not be true of the present. This one is aorist. This one is perfect. And this one is pluperfect. And you can see now why they're not that common in Greek, because how often do you want to say, I have broken the window, I had broken the window? How often do you want to make statements about the past that have some kind of impact on another point? How does this work in endings terms? Well, you saw the basic luo, I untie. You've seen the future and aorist gain a sigma, and the imperfect and aorist gain an augment. Because the perfect and pluperfect are also past tenses, they're also going to change their front. But I'm not going to put a breathing on them because that's not actually quite what happens. In fact, they reduplicate. So you get a reduplication of the original consonant. So le, lu. And then the pluperfect reduplicates and augments. So elelu. Future took normal endings. The imperfect took slightly different endings to the present, but very similar ones. The aorist had those endings characterised by an alpha. For the active, you now need another marker. You need a kappa. And then in the perfect, the endings are the same as the aorist. And the pluperfect, they're based around the diphthong a. They mean I shall untie. I was untying. I untied. I have untied. I had untied. So it feels to me often that the further back you go in the past, the longer the word becomes. You can see that stem lu that we use has now become huge. It's got the reduplication marking perfect stuff. It's got the extra augment in the pluperfect marking the pastness. It's got the kappa infix marking the perfect again. So the perfect is double marked, but like the aorist is double marked. And then you've got your endings. It's huge, but it's therefore relatively easy to recognise as a form. You then have to work out what verb you're dealing with. How do we form it all the way through? Well, we'll add our reduplication on. We'll add in our kappa for the active. The middle and passive don't get that. They are at least the same, which reduces how much you need to learn. But now you've got your endings. Ka, kas, ke, kamen, kate, kan. The same endings as you had for the aorist. So the endings are not new. But you've got a different infix, you've got a kappa, and you've got a reduplicated front. Middle and passive, the endings are again not hideous. They're almost identical to the present. But in the present you had lu, o, my, and here you just got lelu, my. So you're missing that vowel that would join things together. So the only one that's actually new is the sigh, and you've often seen that the second person singular goes a bit weird. The rest of them are endings you've seen already. The pluperfect, I'm not going to put the endings up here because they are that unusual. You're not going to meet them very often and you really don't need to worry about them too much. They are in the book if you want them, and I will put them on canvas as well. The endings are on page 185. A couple of other things you need to think about. First is Grassmans Law. If we're going to reduplicate the front, then we might get some sound change problems as well. Try saying Theth Neka or Theth or Bearmai. Theth Neka. You end up sounding like you got a lisp. It's very difficult to say. It doesn't really work. So this guy Grassman worked out that when this happens, when you've got an aspirated sound, so both of these are aspirated, they have an H in them, the reduplication de-aspirates. So what you get instead is Tethneka and Pe for Bearmai. Participles are something also worth remembering. The active are going to reduplicate. So you're going to have reduplication all the way through. You've then got a kappa all the way through. It's then another 3-1-3 participle. Lelikos, lelikuya, lelikos. And the genitive, kotos. So you can see what the stem change is. So kota, kotos, koti, kotes, kotas, koton, kosi, to deal with that weird dative contraction. The neuters can be very similar. Kos, kos, kotos, koti, kota, kota, koton, kosi. Feminine, kuya, kuyan, kuyas, kuya. It's going to sound like oikia because it's got the iota stem like oikia. So the endings aren't new there. Once you've learnt coarse kotos, the form is, it's another 3-1-3 adjective though. In the middle and passive, you're going to reduplicate and then add the trusty menos on the end, for which the endings are already familiar. That is the perfect in a nutshell. Pluperfect is very rare. We will look at them as and when you find them. It's even longer than the perfect. There aren't that many perfects in New Testament, e.g. 48 perfect infinitives. It's used very specifically for things like, if you have come to know God, then you can't unknow him, you are in a changed state. If you've risen from the dead, you are in a changed state. If you have come to stand next to Jesus, then you are now stood next to him. So consider the following. Someone rings you. Where are you? I'm stood at the bus stop. That stood is the English perfect. It means you are standing and have come to stand there and therefore are now stood there. So that's the kind of thing the perfect can do. It can give you something that people stand at the foot of the cross because they have come to stand there and therefore they now are standing there. It gives you a state now that as a result of something's happened in the past. So you might get death, belief, knowledge. It's something that transforms you. So the perfect has very, very, very useful function in the New Testament. You might also have things like hearing and learning. Hearing the word of God, learning the word of God isn't something you can unlearn or unhear, and therefore it's changed who you are, and therefore it's going to be expressed in the perfect. So the perfect does some really useful things in the New Testament. It's not all that frequent, and we will pause over it as and when we find it until you're used enough to them to deal with them by yourselves.